All right, let's do it. Okay. But like right now.
Whenever you're ready. And action.
Hello, and welcome to the You Show Show. It's the show where you show things. And I am your host, Calvin Laserman. I'm going to die. And today I am joined by my best buddy, Isabelle Spotts.
Hello, I am your best buddy, Isabelle Spotts. That was perfect. Yes, hello. Today
Hi.
we are here with the real Isabelle Spotts. Isabelle, hello, and welcome back to the studio. It's good to have you back.
Thank you.
A couple of things I done fucked up last time. I fucked up your last name like like a real friend.
Yep, that's okay. It's a little confusing.
It is a little confusing, but that's
Yep.
okay. But today I'm joined by Isabelle Spotts, my best. What did you say? Best good friend, my best.
Best good friend, best buddy, all the words.
All the words, all the
Yep.
buddy. It's all here all the time.
Buddy feels.
I also forgot to mention last time that yes, you also run a podcast as well, and I wanted to promote it last time, so I'm going to make a point of doing it this time.
Oh, nice.
And it is called Night Faces.
Yeah.
Do you have like a elevator pitch on
Oh my
Night
God.
Faces? I almost said noise faces.
Noise faces, yeah.
Noise faces.
The elevator pitch is the worst because I guess maybe as the writer of Night Faces, I don't have that. I'm like, here, let me explain episode by episode to you right now. I'm really bad at that. But okay, so it's an audio drama. I actually always feel weird even calling it a podcast because okay, so your show to me, that's a podcast, right? It's like a show, kind of. So, no, it's like an audio drama, kind of like murder mystery, ghost story, about a young woman, dancer, who's murdered, and it's kind of the mystery of what happened to her and kind of the investigation into what happened to her ultimately to release her soul to the afterworld. It's has kind of like dark religious undertones and, you know, all that fun stuff.
All that fun stuff.
Mhm.
Yeah. I know it's available on Apple Podcasts. Is it available kind of anywhere else?
It's on everything, literally everything.
It's on the everything. So yeah, check
Not
it out.
like, I guess like not like YouTube or anything, but it's like on all the podcast channels. It's on a bunch of stuff. And we're actually working on our next podcast already. Well, our next audio drama, and we're really excited about it. So yeah,
Do you
it's
have do you have the name? Can you share the name?
yeah, I can. It's called Desert Gods.
Ooh.
Yeah, we're really excited about it, and yeah, that's all I'm gonna say.
All right, deal.
Mystery.
Mysteries abound. But yeah, that is Night Faces available on all the things, and go check it out. It's really good. Yeah, you and your husband Ben, you guys do both a really good job. He does more the audio, you do the reading and the writing, and it's awesome.
Thank you. Yeah, Ben's music is amazing. That's like the part that I'll be like, write some part or whatever, and he'll put music behind it, and I'm like, here it is now. Now it's not just my voice. Now it's this kind of like beautiful scene taking place. Thank God, not just me talking.
Not just two assholes sitting in a room talking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We should get Ben some music behind us for sure.
Yeah, maybe one day. But yeah, actually, it's funny because Ben actually did the music for this podcast. So
Oh,
look
yes,
at that.
yes, he did. Yep.
We get his sexy voice going like, you show. Yeah, it's good shit. So anyway, well, today, in the theme of Halloween, on November 8th,
Right.
we're going to be talking about more spooky movies. And today's
Okay.
spooky... okay.
You continue. You go before I interrupt you.
My spooky movie that I like is really only because I'm a slut for Stanley Kubrick. And so today we're going to be talking about The Shining.
Hi, Lloyd. A little slow tonight, isn't it?
Yes, it is, Mr. Torrance. What'll it be?
Oh, I was gonna say, right. So you were like, oh, the Halloween thing. So The Shining is actually a classic winter movie for me. I watch it every winter.
Okay.
Winter.
Winter? I do declare, Governor, you do watch it every winter.
I love it on a good winter's eve.
Oh, with a glass of bourbon and wine.
With a good bit of mead. But anyway, so like let's not keep doing that. But yeah, so I watch it every winter. So it's, to me, it's actually not a Halloween movie. So I think we can get away with this as like a November film, is my point.
Okay,
That's my point.
The November spookies.
Yeah, okay. Because I remember I have the lists for winter and summer and fall, not spring, because I guess that's only midsummer, which wow. But
we'll get into that later. But yeah, okay, The Shining. Let's do a recap. Do you want to kick it off, or do you want me to kick it off?
Oh, hell no. I'm not gonna recap The Shining, a 2.5-hour long movie. This is you. This is all you.
So The Shining was a Stephen King book. And I'm going to start out everything right here, right now. That I don't like Stephen King. I'm just gonna start this whole conversation by saying that I do not like him.
Painful between friends. This is painful. Wow.
We can maybe get to that in a bit, but I think I'm not a big fan of him. His not spooky stuff I actually do like, but his spooky stuff I can't really stand.
So are you not a huge fan of him in the way of like you haven't liked his his film adaptations? Like, do you read his books?
Both. I've read some of it. I've tried to read some of his books. I've tried to read The Gunslinger, and I'm sorry, I can't get into it. It's this like self-masturbatory prophetic writing that he thinks he's more elegant than he actually is, and the man takes 10 times longer to explain a scene. See, I'm a person
I love that.
I hate it.
I'm like, I grew up on Stephen King. Like, that is, but that's okay. I mean,
see, I'm like, because like I do like editing for my job, and so I'm like, if you don't need it, fucking get rid of it. And he's the complete opposite. Like he wrote a like one of the last things I tried reading was like a short story about, it was like a serial killer. I think it's like a wife is a serial killer. The husband, it's a husband, and then the wife slowly discovers that he's a serial killer by like finding all these like clues in a garage. I couldn't even finish it because it was like he was like explaining the color of the fucking iPad in the room. And the iPad had fucking nothing to do with the story. So it's
I think so. That's the stuff, though. That's the stuff, right? I mean, but I mean, it definitely depends on who you are.
I think he has really good concepts. He's good at like the what's the dream catcher? Where he'll you can tell.
Oh my God, I was actually going to tell a story about Dreamcatcher in our conversation. That's hilarious.
With Morgan Freeman's eyebrows in the movie. But anyway,
fuck around, Dreamcatcher's good, man. It's good.
Well, yeah, like he's really good at coming up with an idea. Like, what if
he creates a lot of original horror. Actually, he does. It's like that's his thing.
What if the next bout of diarrhea that you have is an alien living?
Is actually an alien that's going to eat your face off. Yeah,
exactly. What if there's a spooky clown that comes from outer space living in a sewer?
It's like everything that you've ever decided. I'm not going to think about this. He's like, I'm going to think about this for sure.
So his concepts are like 10 out of 10. But then I think his writing style, along mixed with this mixture of character development, his characters are just like. Blah. And so I don't know. I can't get into it. I tried watching The Outsiders on HBO. I couldn't even finish it. I couldn't finish it.
I actually loved it. We're so different in this way. Maybe up to like honestly, like it was like the final episode that I was like, ugh, this fell flat. But I mean that happens with a lot of stuff. But I actually loved it, The Outsiders. But
at the point I gave up, I don't even know what episode it is. There's a part where like two adult men randomly start talking about vampires, and I was like, I'm fucking done. Like, this is not how people talk. I just quit. So
maybe it's not how you people talk.
Maybe that's not how. What do you mean, you people? Anyway, so this is a Stephen King book. But then what's kind of cool is that Stanley Kubrick bought the rights, like, and Stephen King actually sent him a script for the film, and he basically gave Stephen King the middle finger and was like, nah, I'll handle it from here. So Stephen King had like nothing to do with this. And I think that really quick.
I mean, as he does with most of his movies, right? Doesn't he kind of like release?
Well, most of his films are like of his own creation. And so he was a director that like wanted to do, like Christopher Nolan and some other directors have taken this approach of doing kind of like one of each type of film. Mm-hmm. War epics, horror, a war film, a comedy, list goes on, a science fiction. And so when it came to the horror film, I think that he saw the potential because, Kubrick read all the time. So I'm sure he had read, Stephen King's work up to that point.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like, and I could be wrong, I really don't know the history behind why he picked this, but I feel like he knew that the Stephen King name might draw in a different crowd than maybe the normal Kubrick crowd up to that point. And that's kind of the only thing that I can kind of think of is that there is an association. And because, Stephen King, love him or hate him, is a hyper successful writer.
Hell yeah.
But yeah, in terms of like the actual creation of this film, he doesn't have a lot. And there's even, we'll get into it later, there's a theory about Stanley Kubrick kind of insinuating that like he's going to kill Stephen King based off of a fan theory, but that's later on. So anyway,
I do think this is the film that has generated many a theory. That is kind of that's the deal with this movie.
Oh, for sure. We'll get into that. And see, that's why this is like one of my favorite films. But so then I guess the short of it all is a quick little fun recap. We have the Torrance family. We've got Jack. I always thought it was funny that Jack is played by Jack Nicholson, and then Danny is played by Danny Lloyd, and then Wendy is played by Shelley Duvall. I always think that's kind of funny because, like, the film is very much designed to push Wendy, Shelley Duvall's character, on the outside, and I don't know if, like, that's, like, one more little thing that they did to, like, make her feel different. Yeah, because, like, if you're on set and, like, they're talking about Jack and Danny, but then they're talking about Wendy.
She's the one that, like, doesn't have, her name. It's, like,
again,
very unattached.
Yeah, and I don't know if that was intentional or not. I have no idea, but that's something that I always liked. So anyway, the Torrance family, Jack gets assigned the, the
Overlook. The Overlook.
Yeah, at the Overlook Hotel.
Yeah.
And he becomes the groundskeeper to basically manage and just make sure that any repairs or maintenance or anything like that the hotel should need during the winter season, he's there to take care of it. So he moves his family up to this hotel up in the middle of the mountains in the middle of Colorado in the middle of the winter season, and that's where they live for X amount of time until slowly the insanity sets in. There's some spookies happening in room 237. Danny's getting attacked, the little boy. What else? And then I'm going to probably just say Shelley Duvall, but Wendy is concerned. She wants to go back to town. Jack is like, are you fucking kidding me? I have an obligation to my employer.
This is my obligation.
This is my job. Are you trying to fucking ruin it? He's also trying to write. That's a big thing. He's trying to work on a book because he's a high school teacher.
He's a teacher. Yep.
And so he's kind of mad at her, and then the tensions rise, and then we also figure out that Danny's got a thing called The Shining, where you can kind of telepathically talk to other people that also have the gift called The Shining. Danny starts to see some spookies, and then Jack effectively snaps and is trying to murder his entire family in this hotel.
Which has happened once before.
Good point. Thank you. Yep. There was a family that was there, I think they insinuate like the mid 70s or something like that.
Yep.
And not, which is not too far from the film came out in the 1980s to insinuate that it happened recently. Jack is chasing down Wendy and Danny. It revolves with Danny going into the maze, which is another key theme of this film, is the maze that is next to the hotel, where he basically outsmarts Jack by covering up his footprints, and then Danny is able to escape the maze. He meets back up with his mother, Wendy, who goes through the goofy spookies of the house, where she sees skeletons and a man in a teddy bear costume. And then they get in the cat, the bobcat, the sled. I don't even know what the fuck you call it.
Yeah, like the snow cat.
The snow cat.
Snow dog, who knows?
And then they put that shit in first gear, and they just drive off into the nighttime and assumedly make it back home safe. I think that's about it.
That's it. That's a very good synopsis.
Holy crap. Okay, I feel lightheaded. But
Yeah.
but yeah, so let me start out with a question for you really quick.
Sure.
Have you ever seen the documentary Room 237?
No. Nope.
Okay, it is exactly 50% interesting and 50% the dumbest thing I've ever seen in my entire life.
Okay, is this the one that like recently came out or no?
Recently being like within the last 10 years, yes.
I was gonna say, that's probably my recent.
Yeah. Not as recent, or yeah, it's not as old as the film itself. I think it came out in like 2009, I want to say, give or take.
Okay.
It's worth a watch, but it's not worth spending money on, if that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely.
I watched it on Netflix, and it's a documentary where they do not show any of the faces of the people that they're interviewing. And it's a collection of fan theories on the movie. But what's really bizarre about it is that, like, they don't edit any of the audio that was sent to them. So, like, in the middle of this documentary, like, there's one guy who's like getting like super nerdy, he's getting super hardcore into his fan theory, and then he's like, "Oh, I'm sorry, hold on, my child is screaming," and you can hear him like, "Bobby, Bobby, stop!" And it's like,
Surprised
really?
his name wasn't Danny.
Yeah, exactly. And it was like, really, you couldn't cut this out of your documentary. Like, this had to stay in.
Yeah, like come on.
And then there's some theories that are really interesting, and then there's some theories that are just like fucking wackadoo. Now, it's been a minute since I've seen it, but like one lady was talking about how like Danny was talking about like the little voice inside of his head. Tony.
It's Tony?
Yeah, it's Tony. Tony's the little voice that lives inside of
Shit,
Danny's
I thought
head.
it was like Davy. That was something close.
It can be. So like one lady was talking about how like her child basically started saying things that Danny said in the movie, but it's not like a fan theory. She's literally explaining how her child also does things that Danny the character does, and that's it. And it's like that's not a fan theory. That's just you talking about your child. So it's
That's like
really,
your kid's got something going on.
exactly.
Friend.
And it's like you're listening to it, being like, okay, like. Yeah, does this tie
Where's this
into,
heading?
Yeah, does this tie into your fan theory? And it doesn't. And it's really bizarre. But there are some interesting things. Like they talk about like one thing that this film gets a lot is the idea and the metaphors that play into the disasters that happen to Native Americans, of America once basically us folk came in and we were like, hey, this is ours, and like the atrocities that came with it. Room 237 goes into like some other like examples of, you do obviously see a lot of like Native American imagery, in the hotel. They even talk about that it was like on the burial grounds of a Native American battle that happened a long time ago, and the bodies are there. And then like these Native Americans even tried to come back and like kind of claim the land again, and it was fought, and there was more death and destruction. There's a lot of like in the food pantry, there's a lot of like, I think there's like tobacco in there that has like a Native American chief as like a mascot on the side of like some of the food containers.
Yeah.
There's other theories. There was like one lady who had a theory that like the maze can kind of be representative of like the Minotaur, and that Jack does kind of have some like bull-like resemblance, kind of insinuating like I don't know a ton about like the old Greek mythology of like the Minotaur and the maze, but it's kind of in there. So anyway, this is a very long way to go about asking you what does the film mean to you, and what are like some things that you think about and some of its meanings in this film?
Well, that's kind of, it's interesting because I grew up watching it like probably mostly because my mom was a big fan of Stephen King, so we definitely watched it many times. And I remember as a kid it scared me a lot, and then as an adult watching it, I was like, this does nothing for me for a while, right? Until I kind of got more into it. But this time when I rewatched it, this was probably the first time that I'd seen it again since having, kids and a family and that sort of thing. And I think that definitely changed it from just, it changed it into more of a horror film for me, honestly, because it's so unsettling, the family dynamic. Like I think I'd said to you before, just me and you, I was like, wow, just rewatching this again, I am so much more disturbed by Jack, like so much more disturbed by him as like a husband and a father than when I'd ever seen it before. And just kind of I think it's the family dynamic that really I pay the most attention to watching it now. I know that there are probably a million different things you could pay more attention to in it, but Danny being really afraid of his father is such a theme. Wendy being very afraid. So she's the one that I probably pay the most attention to. She's just so submissive and so passive, and it's just watching her fall apart. But, at the same time, like that's actually always who she's been. Like she's a character who really, I think, in a really interesting way, like so many times with female characters, they want to take maybe a more submissive or passive character and have her change throughout the film to maybe become some like super badass or something, right? That never happens with her. I mean, she is always just as scared and fearful and submissive as always, yet she still does everything she needs to do. You know what I mean? Like she still does what she needs to do to stay alive. And I think that's kind of like a really something I watched a lot more. Where I think in the past when I watched her, I was like, this girl is annoying. Like I can't. And now just like watching her as like there's just this like it's just so sad. She's just like such a fearful wife and such a fearful mother. So that was just something I paid attention to a lot. Also, I would say like um The Shining. It's called The Shining, right? And that's actually the only portion of the movie that seems to be a very Stephen King aspect to me is that little piece of it. And it actually seems like such a small um it seems mostly insignificant even. Like I think like the story of like Jack kind of like coming into madness and all of that, and it seems to be a much bigger thing than this the shining or the scary scenes. I feel like almost like the scenes that like Danny sees, I mean, they're kind of the horrific part. They're kind of like showing this stuff, but it doesn't feel like what the movie is about to me.
Yeah, and I always think it's funny too, like yeah, like The Shining, which is where the name of the film in the book gets its title from, is almost this aspect that isn't delved into almost hardly at all in the film,
Yeah,
which is kind
I
of
agree.
funny. And I agree wholeheartedly on like the family aspect of the horror of this film, and that's
Yeah.
my favorite thing. And I'll get into that in a second. But in terms of like The Shining, on that same note, I think it's kind of funny that I kind of feel like Danny has a gift, and that I don't know how to phrase it exactly, but it's like I feel when I watch this movie that Danny is doing these things to his father, Jack. This vivid imagination is coming from Danny because he's afraid of his father and knows what his father has become.
Mm-hmm.
That like he's doing all of this to create effectively like a domino effect to make his father become, insane and murderous so that he will die and that he can then go have a peaceful life with his mother, because I feel like deep down inside, that's who Jack is. So I feel like The Shining is Danny fucking with his dad. So it's like, is that the horror of the film? Is all these things that Danny has set up inside of the film? Or are they things that are happening to him? They never really get the answer, but I do think it's interesting.
Yeah, that is kind of interesting because I guess like the way I watch it is definitely seeing this child afraid of his father who's experiencing these things because of his father. But that's like an interesting way to look at it, that he is ultimately kind of crafting his own survival. Because I mean, he kind of know. I mean, even like that scene that they have, and this is like another thing I just paid so much more attention to, when Wendy is describing in her very like way of when Jack hurts Danny, and it's an accident or whatever, and she's describing it in the beginning, and as she's describing it, you're just kind of like, girl, what the hell is wrong with you? Like, you are in a situation like this isn't normal. This is a bad situation. This is not like a good father, whatever. She's like, oh, it's an accident, whatever. But you kind of like see that, even if they hadn't gone to the Overlook or even whatever, that probably would be the trajectory of Danny's life, would be his father hurting him and his mother, and then maybe eventually killing them. I mean, that's kind of how that stuff goes. So it's like,
yeah, something even more. Exactly.
yeah.
Well, and I always feel too, like, I don't know, and there's like, this is all feelings for right now, but I always feel too, like, Jack is, we realize he's a high school teacher, but has interest of writing, and I feel like there's kind of an inflamed ego that has then been torn down by perhaps getting married and having a child.
100%, yeah.
And so I've always felt like then, too, in that same idea that Danny's life would have been one of ridicule had his father been a part of it. Because if Danny succeeded in any capacity, Jack would have torn him down for it.
Yeah.
And so then this hotel situation is almost then like a happy circumstance that Danny now has the ability to cover up effectively a murder of his father. And Kubrick was a smart man. I love Kubrick. I think that he was wise beyond his years, and I think that we'll never have a director like him ever again. I love Kubrick. Mm-hmm. And I know that Kubrick would have known that the study of film is very similar to that of the study of psychology. They do go a lot hand in hand. And if anyone that studied with psychology would know, like, whether you believe it or not, it doesn't matter. But, like Freud spoke of a lot of things of, like, young boys wanting to kill their fathers so that they can have the mothers for themselves. Now, it was in a more sexual tone, but I don't think that's where the film is trying to go nor imply. But the insinuation of that is there. He gets his mom at the end of the movie, and they get to go live their lives without this abusive father. Mm-hmm. And to me, that's like, it's so good. It's so interesting. And then you were talking about like the submissiveness too. So I guess one thing that I like, here's my little 10-cent theory on the film. Mm-hmm. The film literally starts with a yellow car driving up the road to the Overlook Hotel. And we get the opening credits. We don't see inside the yellow car at any given point. And then we see the hotel, and then we cross-dissolve into the hotel, and we say Jack Nicholson, Jack, enter the hotel. And I've always felt like we as the audience right there are seeing Jack being taken by this hotel. Like, as soon as he's walked into it, he's already been taken. And I guess, and you and I have talked about this before, but then that kind of coincides with the end of the film, where the camera pushes in on the portrait of photos on the wall, and we see a photo of Jack Nicholson from 1921. So I feel like the camera of the movie is a filter, is a lens, and we are seeing the spirit of this person already inside the character Jack. So, like, the physical exterior of Jack's character could look like me, or it could look like Robert Redford or Bill Murray. I don't know. But what we
that would have changed the film.
Yeah, that's actually what should have been the bad guy, was Bill Murray. But that's how I see it. As soon as we walk into the hotel, he's already been possessed. He's already taken by the horrific horrors, of this hotel, the spooky, the elements that are
the kind of possession type thing. Yeah.
Exactly. That's going to take him later on. And in watching it then too, as soon as he meets with the guy who's going to be his employer, I forget his name, I'm sorry, but the boss or whatever that he meets with briefly, there's things like he's asking Jack questions like, is your family okay with it? And Jack says things like, oh yeah, they're going to love it. They're going to be fine. He's answering for them without even asking them. And that is a very like toxic and abusive trait that, men have a lot in relationships. It's like the buildup of anticipation will then allow for whatever behavior that they're going to conduct because they know it's quote unquote the good thing. He thinks it's like this holiday retreat. so therefore he'll answer for his family, and that's very abusive. That's toxicity. That's not good.
Well, obviously, I mean, some people can be put off by the idea of staying alone at a place where something like that actually happened.
Well, you can rest assured, Mr. Ullman, that's not going to happen with me. And as far as my wife is concerned, I'm sure she'll be absolutely fascinated when I tell her about it. She's a confirmed ghost story and horror film addict.
Well, another thing about that is like, when you talk about him being this, he's like a school teacher who is like this aspiring writer. And he's bringing his family to a hotel that the Overlook that he is looking over. That is like that's his charge. I mean, I don't know. That's not a great job. Like, you know what I mean? Like that within itself, it's like there's already this feeling of like disguised failure. Like, Wendy already has to be so pumped and happy and excited for him. She's like so supportive of what he's doing when really it's not this, he's disguising it with like, well, I'm going to be here to write a book, but no, you're here to like look after a boiler. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's just like, it's already kind of it already has this sense of responsibility for him, but also failure. Like he's like, you kind of get that feeling already. And that's kind of, he kind of treats Wendy and Danny that way the entire way through. I think like in some films, like you'll watch somebody go from being like a great dad, and then they like slowly start to deteriorate. And it's like, no, he starts off as a character that you're kind of willing to see them fall apart. Like you're already a little unlikable. That's kind of his thing. And then you kind of like watch him go into madness, but he embodies that, like what he's going to become. He already is it a little. I think maybe that is what you say even about the moment he steps foot into the hotel. You know what I mean? Like he's already that.
Yeah, he's already this person that like we know is going to have like a timely demise. So
Yep.
Oh shit, I lost my train of thought. And then it's like it's funny too. Then like on like the possession idea as well is like, one of the most iconic scenes, one of the most famous scenes is when we finally see what he's been writing on the typewriter, which is the all work in the play, and it's a stack. So that means he's been working on it for some time, which would then again insinuate that again like this thing, whatever it should be, was right there from the start. And I don't know. I just think it's really interesting because this is a film similar to The Exorcist, where like again, every time you watch it, you can pick up something new, and those are my kind of movies where every single time you can watch it. Like one of my favorite things in the movie, and I pointed out to Nat every time we watch this movie, and she's like, "Yeah, I know. Shut up, asshole. I know."
That's just watching movies.
Yeah, and I apologize. And there's the scene where like Danny and Wendy are watching TV. In kind of the main room, the great hall, outside the big windows. And if you pay attention to the TV, there's nothing plugged into it. There's no power cable and there's no cable. And it's just like little things like that maybe it means something, maybe it doesn't, but it's there for your subconscious to at least notice to help then build this dread that something's wrong, because it's something that we don't look for. Our eyes are focused on the TV screen, but like you will in some way, shape, or form notice that those things aren't there.
Yeah, isn't that somewhere else too? I feel like when I was watching it, I noticed some other strange thing that Jack does, where it's like oh God, I'm not gonna be able to think of it. Oh, that sucks. But yeah, I know what you're saying. It's kind of like they do that in like Shutter Island. That's a good example. Like where you're there, he takes a drink of water and there's nothing. There's no cup. There's nothing. You know what I mean? Like, and it's like you don't necessarily notice it the first time you see it. Maybe you don't notice it the fifth time you see it, but your brain subconsciously notices it, and it's just that little slip, that little bit that's like off, that causes such unease. Because I will say that like as much as I've never considered this like really a horror film, although I mean I did much more this time around watching it, but it still has that same feeling that a horror film has of just this like I'm feeling uncomfortable. I'm feeling like slightly like this could like I said before with The Exorcist, like you're always like more afraid if you feel like it could happen to you. And I think what happens at the Overlook, you're like, oh, this is like this very specific situation. But his like slip into madness is the part that feels a little maybe relatable, something that could happen to a person that could be and I think those like little tiny subliminal things that they do that kind of messes with your own brain to make you think, what? Like,
oh, 1,000,000%, yeah. Like another really good example is like in the very beginning of the movie with like showing the exterior of the hotel.
mm-hmm.
There's no maze. There's none. There's zero maze because
wow.
the hotel, the actual hotel does not have a maze, and they didn't do anything to try to add it. And then as they're walking around the hotel, getting the exterior view of the hotel, you do see it, but that is still something separate. That's different. And then all of the interior shots are on a closed down lock set. So including the maze itself was built on set for the exterior shots of the false hotel. So it's just like little things like that where like, yeah, if you watch the movie again, right at the beginning of the movie, you will see no maze up on the mountainside of the hotel. And
oh, man.
There's also a lot of little things like, even again, right in the beginning of the movie, when Jack walks into the hotel, if you really pay like super close attention, he goes like from the front door. I think he turns right, he walks down a bit, and then he turns left into the room where he has like the interview with the manager and the other guy.
Mm-hmm.
That's also the room that has the CV radio.
Yep.
And if you pay really close attention, there is another like area, because the main room, like where Jack writes and he's throwing the tennis ball, is around the corner. But when he walks into the office, that let's just call it the manager's office, there's a window that shows outside. But if you were to actually cut that wall down, on the other side of the wall would be the great room. So there's like a ton of like false architecture in the hotel to fuck with you. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, it's so good. And I love it. I love it so much.
I think that we had an argument about this before.
Yeah, and it's
right?
funny because the first time I pointed it out to Nat too, she also got a little mad at me. People get mad. People get mad. It's funny. People do get mad. They're like, no, it's fine. And it's like, yo, dog, trust me. I promise. Like, if there's anybody that's done research on this shit, I promise you it's me. So.
But so my memory of this is though, like, this is when you first moved to Chicago and Ben and I were there helping you move in, and of course we decided to watch The Shining that evening, like on the floor of your new apartment.
God, that apartment was sad.
Yeah, it was really tiny. And we ordered like Chinese food and just like got a bunch of beer. And like I remember being like, okay, we're watching The Shining again. I'm pretty sure we'd already watched it together before. And just drinking copious amounts. And you and Ben got into this big thing about The Shining, like you and I remember like just popping in a few times before I eventually was like, fuck you guys, I'm going to bed. I'm just not doing this. And that was your big thing, was that you were talking about everything that was so purposeful, like all of these little aspects that came together and that were like an absolute vision and this was it. And then I think I made the counter argument that like, what if they weren't all purposeful?
Yeah, what if they just were?
What if they just were? Like, what if that was just the grand vision and it just happened to, like, you as the viewer just happened to create that all in your mind, like that and you were very like, nope, this chair was here for this goddamn reason, do not fuck with me. And I was like, or maybe the chair was there for that reason, but not the reason you think. It was just there because it happened to look good there, but your mind thinks that it's actually for this future reason. Do you remember that? That was...
Oh, it's funny. I've had this exact same thing with like 5 other people. I'm sorry, you're not the only one. Yeah, no, I know.
Oh, how sad.
Yeah, no, it's funny. Like, can I vent for a minute?
Mm-hmm.
So, like, Okay, take like I don't know, take a friend that you've got that's like a chef at a restaurant, right?
Yeah. Hmm.
So you know that they went to school to study like foods
I know exactly where this is going.
yeah,
I'm
and
gonna
like
punch
food
you in the
prep.
face.
Yeah. And like you're at a
Okay, okay.
restaurant with like Bob the chef, and
Right.
and and Bob the chef is like, "Hey, I've been to this restaurant before. Um and I can tell you, like, their duck à l'orange is it's the jam. It's the best fucking duck à l'orange that you'll ever have. You will say, like, oh, interesting. Okay, yeah, I'll consider it. And then maybe, like, a Sunday ordering, like, you know what? I'm just really in the mood for steak tonight. And, like, Bob the chef is going to be, Bob, Bill, whatever, chef is going to be
Hmm.
like, that's cool. I respect your decision. But, like, if you ever wanted to eat that duck à l'orange and talk about it, I'm here, and I might even like enlighten you on a new idea. And people are like, wow, that's so nice of you, Bob. Thanks. And then you go to film school and then you start talking about like film theories with your friends and they're like, shut the fuck up, I hate you. And I've never understood it. Like talking about like film theory, especially with somebody that does not agree with you, is like, it's like pulling teeth. And it's something that like I've never understood because there's always this part of me that's like, yo, I spent the money and went to school. That doesn't make me an expert. I know I'm not, but I do think it's funny. And it's to the point where like I can laugh about it now. In my 20s, I couldn't, but I was a shithead in my 20s. So like now I'm 34, almost 35. Like I can laugh about it a little bit more, but it is kind of funny. But I think that Kubrick was a genius. The man was hyper smart and he was a hyper amazing person. I mean, these are like people like Scorsese and Steven Spielberg and George Lucas have all talked about like he was capable of doing things that they never could because he was such ahead of his time. And love it or hate it, 2001 is like a staple in cinema history and it's a beautiful, magnificent film. There's people that don't like it and I can understand their reasons. And I think that if some of these things were accidental, he built enough things that were intentional to make people leave his films trying to think about it and figure out what it means. And so no matter what, he was a genius at that. You know what I mean?
So so therein lies the argument though, right? So that's it. So you're talking about his absolute genius. I think this is again the like you're like, I'm trying to let you know that you can't have this argument with me, but here I am doing it anyway. So therein is the argument. So right, so he's such a genius, and this is what you're saying. And I mean, I agree. The Shining is a phenomenal film. So, but that's kind of it. So if you have that distinct vision, do you have to absolutely place that chair? You don't, because you have this overall feeling that you are creating, right? Like this that you almost that you wouldn't even have to for it to create something for viewers. I mean, you don't have the feeling at all with all the fan theories of this film that like that some people have taken a bit of a dive. You know what I mean? That
Oh
they're
yeah, yeah.
pulling everything that they can from it. I mean, I am sure that there are so many intentional things that I could not even come up with in my brain because I am not a director. But I mean, sometimes like when people talk about this film, like the intentions of it and just like the exact placement of every single thing is kind of like, is that it, or is it this grander scale?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
You're like, no, I don't.
No, I do know what
stand
you
by
mean.
my
'Cause
shit.
it is very funny, and it is, I think, one of those things where like there were moments where I'm sure Stanley was like, the fucking black chair, we got to move on. You know what I mean? But there
Yeah.
were moments like he's really good with like eye direction. A Clockwork Orange is a really good example of that. A lot of times when Alex is carrying his cane will kind of like foreshadow what's going to happen based off of what it's pointed at.
Mm-hmm.
But then on your point, see, like, and I'll agree with you too. We will never know. He's dead. And that's the sad part. If there's anybody there's like few people in history that I wish I could go back and talk to.
Yeah.
JFK is one. I don't know if you have anybody that like you would ever go back in time and have the ability to talk to, but he's one for me.
I'd have to think about it.
If you think of any, let me know. And
I will.
I would love to talk to Stanley Kubrick. And but yeah, no, I agree that like it does then go into this like it comes into like an unhealthy, like anything, obsession for some people. And it's also then like it's funny too because I feel like some people are like pulling out theories that like are theories just for the sake of being a new theory that they've got. Like, and I'm not making fun of anybody here. I promise I'm not. I watched
But
one
you're
recent,
about to.
yeah, I might. I watched one recently, and like the dude did a lot of research, but I'm sorry I couldn't finish it. It was on YouTube. I couldn't finish it because it was just a little pin in the back of my head the whole time, where The Shining is actually about the Beatles.
Oh my God, no.
What's the album Abbey Road where they're walking barefoot?
Yep, yep.
And The Shining is Stanley Kubrick's attempt to talk about the frustrations that people had with the Beatles breaking up. I mean, like,
Stop.
dude,
So
you
this
think
is
I'm
what
smart enough to make this
too
up? I'm not.
too many theories. Just that's like this is like taking theories too far. Like, come on.
Too many theories, not enough time.
Yeah, I mean, okay, at the end of the day, so this is always what gets me. It is a film based off of a Stephen King novel. Like, you know what I mean? Like loosely based as we talked about, but still like that's it. And at the end of the day, it's also still kind of in the horror film realm and in roughly in that genre. So like no, this wasn't about the Beatles. This
No,
you know what
no,
I
I
mean? Like this
can't.
doesn't
No, I
have that
can't. Yeah,
significance. Like
yeah.
that's kind of what gets me. It's like I don't think this is that far reaching. Sorry.
Yeah, well, and like some of it goes into like, have you ever watched those? And I'll make fun of this till the day I die. Have you ever watched those like stupid as fuck YouTube videos where they're like, The Shining came out in 1980. 19 divided by 80 is
Oh my God.
2.14. 2.14 can then be translated to 2021, and today's 1108. So therefore, The Shining was predicted that we would talk about it on 1108 20. Have you ever seen those? Like that's where a lot of
No,
that
I
shit
don't watch
goes.
YouTube videos at all. I'm like the only person that doesn't go on YouTube.
You shouldn't, because 90% of it's trash, but then there's this like 10% nugget that is just juicy and awesome and oh, I love it. And but it's stupid as fuck. Most of it's dumb. But anyway, yeah, there's a lot of theories. But then I think that in terms of like other theories and other like feelings though that I like is like again kind of going back to like the Native Americans, and not even specifically just into the atrocity of that, but like atrocities overall, and how like when they say things like the horrors are still alive in the hotel, excuse me, I think what always that kind of like means to me is like the things that happened, say even 100 years ago, we're still feeling the repercussions of it to this day. You can look at pretty much any not white fucking group of people in this country and say X, Y, and Z has happened to these people, and therefore A, B, and C is the result of it today. And that is the horrors of our past. And so I feel like in some way, Danny, the child, is kind of supposed to be us, and that he has this shining, this gift, but really all it is that he has the ability to see the horrors of the past, which is the ability to educate yourself, to have an understanding of your past, to do research about the things around you and not just see things in terms of the simplicity that perhaps Jack does. And that with your quote-unquote new shining, you will be able to escape with the ones that you love into a future that can then hopefully be better. And I mean, that is something that is very much tying into our, times of now, of equality amongst, different sexualities, men and women, different races. I mean, it's there. And I feel like that is ultimately what the film is about. That if you can stop and be smarter than the situation around you and not just, it's like reason X, Y, and Z are bad, and therefore that's it. And it's like, well, how did they become bad? You know what I mean? Like, how did we get here?
I think that, we talked about this a little bit, even with The Exorcist, that some of the themes of, and with that, it was the possession movie, and it was obviously a very clear, like, good and evil, God and the devil, that sort of thing. And how that can play into times where there's a lot of divide, especially like political divide. And those themes become very, very popular and very relevant in films for that reason, because it just really reflects that division that you feel. And, you can look at The Shining and feel the same way. I mean, it's still at the end of the day, there is still this possession that takes place, right? And there's all, Danny is again this innocent, right? That's a very easy thing to see that he is it's very love to make the children innocent. That's like the obvious portrayal of someone who is innocent. And so you have him, who ultimately does rise above. And then you have, Jack, who obviously doesn't, who just, you know, goes off the rails into madness and then meets his demise. And so, it's still that idea of good and evil. It's still that idea of like the innocent versus the not innocent. Like I said, from the beginning, the very beginning of the movie, he is a jackass. You know what I mean? He's just a dick, and he's very unlikable. Like there's hardly any point that he is likable or redeemable. And so, yeah, I do think that that plays to. I think that it stays relevant because it plays to these different times where there's that kind of division, and you're looking for the good versus the evil. The evil, the innocent versus the not innocent. I mean, it's really yet again, where does like poor Wendy, where is she? Like, where does she stand as the the crazy, horrified, submissive mother trying to find her way? Like that's probably like the most relevant to our time now.
Yeah. Oh, 1,000,000%.
That's probably even more so.
Yeah, I'm just here to take care of my kids, and
Yeah, like I'm like falling apart. And like I said, actually watching it this time, I was so much more impressed by her because again, her character doesn't make this huge change. She does not make that stereotypical like I started off submissive, but now I'm this major badass that's about to like chop my husband's head off. I mean, she does like, get some strength along the way, like her swinging that bat at him at the one, like, which I think is like one of the hardest scenes to watch. It's just so horrific, but like, and sad. She's so like weak and tired, like you can tell. But she doesn't become more than she ever was. She stays her kind of passive little quiet self, but still, finds a way to overcome in a way. I mean, Danny helps, but
You believe his health might be at stake.
Yes.
You are concerned about him.
Yes.
And are you concerned about me?
Of course I am.
Of course you are. Have you ever thought about my responsibilities?
Oh, Dick, what are you talking about?
Have you ever had a single moment's thought about my responsibilities? Have you ever thought for a single solitary moment about my responsibilities to my employers? Has it ever occurred to you that I have agreed to look after the Overlook Hotel until May the 1st? Does it matter to you at all that the owners have placed their complete confidence and trust in me, and that I have signed a letter of agreement, a contract, in which I have accepted that responsibility? Do you have the slightest idea what a moral and ethical principle is, do you? Has it ever occurred to you what would happen to my future if I were to fail to live up to my responsibilities? Has it ever occurred to you? Has it?
Stay away from me.
Why?
I just want to go back to my room.
Why?
Well, I'm very confused. I just need a chance to think things over.
You've had your whole fucking life to think things over. What good's a few minutes more gonna do you now?
Stay away from me. Please. Don't hurt me.
I'm not gonna hurt you.
Stay away from me.
Wendy,
Stay away.
darling, light of my life, I'm not gonna hurt you. You didn't let me finish my sentence. I said, I'm not gonna hurt you. I'm just gonna bash your brains in. I'm gonna bash them right the fuck in.
Stay away from me. Don't hurt me.
I'm not gonna hurt you.
Stay away from me. Stay away.
Yeah, and you could even say that, like, in terms of the themes of, like, insanity setting in, her insanity set in, and hers, though, luckily was, like, protective mother. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah. She didn't. It didn't take her the other way. It took her. It took her the way to protect her child.
Mm-hmm. And I think that I'm glad that you brought it up, because I actually Shelley Duvall, Wendy is my favorite character in this whole movie. I really do like her. I think that a lot of people know this, but like, it's been talked about a ton, but like, she went through hell on the set of this movie.
Ben tells me that every time we watch it, and it actually makes me so sad.
Yeah, and it is this really weird argument where like because directors have historically done this to their actors for years. It's something that's not new. It's been going on for 100 years, and
Yeah.
the question is it morally right? Like there's movies. God, I'm blanking at the moment, but there's like movies where like directors have like fired blank shells and guns to like startle their actors to get real
Ooh,
reactions.
should we be talking about that right now?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Not that one, but
No,
that was
not laughing.
yeah, and
Terrible.
and it's always the question of like, should directors do that? I think a lot of that has calmed down because the height of it was in the 70s where
You could get away with more shit. There was less unions.
exactly. Yeah, there was fewer laws, fewer people that were standing out for these people, especially women,
Yeah,
women.
for sure.
But then and again, it's like the only other side of that argument though is then you get these amazing performances, which Shelley Duvall does do. And there are interviews with her where she talks about it. Now, whether she's speaking positively because she has to for the film, I don't know, but she does talk about in some interviews that genuinely seems like she did enjoy it, but like people have asked her kind of like to go a little bit deeper, and she's like, but given the chance, would I go back and do it again? Absolutely not. And so I do side with her because I have to say that at the end of the day, it's not right because she could have then delivered a performance that wouldn't impede in her own personal life, and no
Right, yeah.
performance is worth that. Like
Exactly. I mean, because the performance, I mean, you could say it's for her, but is it for her? I mean, you know what I mean?
exactly, yeah, that's a really good way to say it because it's like, is it for then the man behind the camera directing
It
the
was,
film?
yeah, it was for the vision of it. Yeah.
And I agree too that it shouldn't be done, but where we are in what has been made, I think her performance is amazing. And
Yeah,
I think
it
that
truly
her,
is.
her character is awesome. And yeah, like that stairway scene, like
Ugh.
you just feel it. You just feel this person just crushed under the weight of being isolated in this hotel in the winter with an asshole madman. I mean, like, that's...
You can see, like, physically, it feels, watching her, it's like she can barely swing the bat. Like, she is, like, losing everything.
Dude, Jack Nicholson's got to be like, I don't know, 80-something years old now, and if he did that to me even now as like an old man, like sticking his tongue out and like walking upstairs, I'd be like, dude, fuck, I'm hitting you with the bat. I'm fucking done. I'm not dealing with
I'm
this
gonna
shit.
do anything to kill you. It is like, truthfully, this is what I'm saying. I'm watching it this time. I'm like, dude, this is like unbelievably scary because he's just like, I'm not gonna do anything to you. I'm not gonna do anything to you except bash your fucking head in or whatever. Like, it's like next level scary. Like,
You're not too busy, are you?
No, sir. I'm not busy at all.
Good man. You set him up and I'll knock him back, Lloyd. One by one. White man's burden, Lloyd, my man. White man's burden. Say, Lloyd, it seems I'm temporarily late. How's my credit in this joint, anyway?
Your credit's fine, Mr. Torrance.
That's swell. I like you, Lloyd. I always liked you. You were always the best of them. Best goddamn bartender from Timbuktu to Portland, Maine. Or Portland, Oregon, for that matter.
Thank you for saying so.
Here's to 5 miserable months on the wagon and all the irreparable harm that it's caused me.
But yeah, The Shining. Yeah, I don't know. I always feel like it's it's a metaphor of like the nuclear family that holds like the secret atrocities of the nuclear family. That like every family has one, and if they're left unchecked, these are the results.
yeah, I mean, it is the idea of like isolation, and that I think that's again, it's like one of those things that like I think that's why I don't think the movie is scary, is because I don't personally connect to that. Like, I'm not like, I don't experience this isolation or this prideful whatever that Jack has. But I think there are probably a lot of people, a lot of families that could relate to that. That could, and isolation, I think, is plays a bigger role into Jack's mind. He's obviously very disconnected from his wife and son. That's I mean, you can see within their relationship. I mean, that's not a loving relationship with a wife. That's not a loving relationship with a son. So a lot of that, is this disconnect and his own personal isolation, which then gets kind of, you outwardly see it in the film when they're out it's acted out at the Outlook um, hotel, but it's really something that's already there. Like, he's already so isolated from them. And then this just kind of propels it forward into what it ultimately, like we kind of talked about, like what it ultimately would have become anyway. Like, here's this big tragic ending in a film, right? Here's this like crazy maniacal man who, with an axe and whatever. But, the film that you don't see is if that hadn't happened and they just went on and lived life together, and then he ultimately hurt and killed them anyway as just an abusive, shitty alcoholic, like deadbeat dad, which would have happened. That's the alternate ending there. This is the theatrical one. This is like the big beautiful movie with all the theories and the grand director, but that's the other side of it. That was already, I think it's like what you talked about. It's already who he was. Like, it was kind of like, why does this choose you? It's like, well, that's already who you are. Like, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Yep. Yeah, there was a road he was already going down, and it's why it's good to, like, I don't know. I always feel like it's good, like, it's checking in with your people. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, for sure. Should we put something at the beginning of this episode, like hotline, check in with your people, families. Do not hurt each other.
Maybe. Yeah, no, check in with your people. It's good. Call your friends, call your family, make sure they're doing all right. Especially in the middle of a pandemic, because we're not out of the woods yet. So
the isolation is here.
The winter's coming up. So.
The snow shall fall soon. We don't all have these snow cats, snow dogs, whatever they get away with.
Yeah, and check in with your people, make sure they're doing good, because they're like, and I can recall examples of like having friends, like when I was a child, like going over to your friend's house and living with them for, I don't know, 24, 36, 48 hours. Mm-hmm. It's sometimes weird.
Hell yeah.
You're at Johnny's house and it's like, yo, that's what your parents do? And it's like that, it's like that again, that like uncomfortableness of like the horror of, again, like the quote unquote great, nuclear American family is, it's got some roots that can sometimes be a little scary. And it's like that kid that is weird and he's eating the glue stick at his desk in sixth grade. He might have some shit going on at home. And so it might be worth checking in on Johnny. So, and, maybe don't eat a glue stick with him, but maybe, try to understand why he's eating that glue stick. So, and yeah, I think for that, I think that the film holds up. And I think that, like you said, it's not a scary movie. Like, I always laugh at, like, when Shelley's running through the spookies towards the end of the film, and she runs in the room, and there's just the skeletons with the cobwebs, dude. I mean, like, I fucking... I crack up every time. I'm like, this is so stupid. Yeah, I don't know. And even, like, the elevator with the blood, the first time you see it is kind of spooky, but then after you see it too many times, I'm just like, dude, like...
Well, that one is one of those ones, again, like to bring it back to when we talked about The Exorcist, how they say that, how like they cut out her going down the stairs backwards or whatever, because it was just so in your face. I feel that way about the blood, the elevator and the blood, which, I mean, it is visually is so cool. Again, the first time you see it, and scary. And then, like, yeah, you see it again and you're like, okay, it's it's just disconnected, and not in like this, it's just, it's almost trying to create more terror than what the movie actually has in it. You know what I mean? It creates this idea at the very beginning of the film that like, this is going to be a goddamn bloodbath, and it's not, you know what I mean? It's just like, it doesn't add up.
No. And again, I feel like it's just like, again, it's like, the hotel is going to bring the elevator up or down from a different part, and it's going to open up and it's going to spill its blood, the history onto you, the viewer. But yeah, after see like you see it the first time and it's like, oh, okay, well that'll be interesting to figure out where that leads, and then you just see it again, and so
And it doesn't feel like it doesn't conclude.
yeah, other than a theme, which it does kind of hit you over the head with a couple times, and based off of whatever you interpret, then that theme is just repeated several times.
Right. There's like
And
another time where it's like Danny sees like the furniture all like floating in the blood in like the lobby, right? Like that happens.
yeah, I mean, it's just like the result of the blood washing the
Yeah.
furniture away, and
Yeah.
yeah, and and it's just in terms of like horror and dread, it's not there, but it's still a great film to watch. It's very rewatchable, and I usually watch this movie about once a year, and
Yeah, it's a winter movie for us. We watch it every winter.
it holds up. And I think that if anyone's never not watched it, I would highly recommend it. And
And the question is, when are they going to redo it? Because it's going to happen. And what are we really going to think of that?
well, they technically did. I think it was a straight to movie or a straight to TV movie. I never saw it. I'm sure, but see, I don't think they will, because I know like Stephen King hates this movie because it has nothing to do with his book, but I don't think he can remake it because like it has such a ginormous fan following.
I
that,
know, but I
like,
mean, you think that, I mean, they're going to remake The Exorcist. God, I feel like they remake everything. I mean, at some point, you just have to
Oh,
wonder.
yeah, no, we're getting another Ghostbusters in
Right.
like, very
Jesus
soon here. And it looks awful. And
Times.
yeah, I don't know. I hope they don't. But I've been
We'll be
like,
back when they do.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, I've been beaten down from that, having to watch like so many of my favorite franchises just fucking nosedive in the dirt. I'm just desensitized by it now.
Wendy, let me explain something to you. Whenever you come in here and interrupt me, you're breaking my concentration. You're distracting me. And it will then take me time to get back to where I was. Understand?
Yeah?
Fine. And we're gonna make a new rule. Whenever I'm in here, you hear me typing. Whether you don't hear me typing, what the fuck you hear me doing in here, when I'm in here, that means that I am working. That means don't come in. Now, do you think you can handle that?
Yeah.
Fine. Why don't you start right now and get the fuck out of here?
I think it's too, like, I don't know what the words are. I feel like in terms of the horror genre overall, it is definitely an outlier. Whether that's good or bad, it's
Yeah.
kind of both.
It's in there though. I mean, it is. I think everybody considers it a horror film. It's just not one that, I mean, I get it's like when we said that, or when I said like, you don't really get a lot of fear out of something that you can't necessarily connect with. And I'm sure many people could connect with this on some level. But like, I'm not going to the Overlook Hotel tomorrow. I'm not like worried about, though I have been to a hotel that was very eerily similar when I was like a kid. My parents they would always take us places in like the off season. I mean, this is what happens when you have 4 kids, right?
Uh-huh.
So you go in the off season, and so we went up to like super northern, like Ashland, Wisconsin, or something, like very northern Wisconsin in the off season. So it's snow, whatever, and they picked this like super crazy old hotel, and it's like completely empty. Like we are the only people staying there. And we're this like family, and we're the only ones staying there. And it is like legit the shining carpet, like the hallway, everything. So scary. All of us kids were like, okay, so are we going to like walk around a corner and see these like little twins in their bloody dresses, whatever. Anyway, I was super horrified the whole time we were there. We would like go down to like the little, like ballroom where you are supposed to have like breakfast, and we were the only family sitting amongst like 200 tables and just being like served this like fancy breakfast, and I'm like, is this person serving us real? Like this is so scary. And then I think it was the second night we were there, I'm like laying down in bed, and we have walked to like the local theater and went and we saw Dreamcatcher. Okay, this is where that came in. We saw Dreamcatcher scare the living shit out of me because I was just at an age that it would. I would couldn't even sit down to go to the bathroom. I thought like a alien was gonna jump up at my ass. So horrifying. But I'm trying to go to sleep that night, and I'm just like have my head down, and I just hear this like rah, 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 rah. And I'm like, no, just no, and just rah, 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 rah. Of course. I mean, if you can imagine, it is my brother, Sam, trying to horrify me. But yeah, so I mean, it's I guess in that way, as much as I say like the film, like it doesn't it's not in the horror genre and it doesn't scare you, given the right circumstance, if you are in some creepy hotel by yourself, you will definitely think of The Shining.
In the
You
middle
will.
of northern Wisconsin, in the middle of winter.
Northern Wisconsin with your husband, not your husband, your brother in the other room, red rah, red rah. Yeah, you will get scared. I mean, you will, especially if you go and see a different Stephen King film that night.
That's funny. Yeah, if you're ever bored sometime, just Google Morgan Freeman's eyebrows from The Dreamcatcher. Just Google that. You won't regret it.
Yeah, I'm going to. I mean, that is a dumb movie, but it's still on my winter list too because it's snowy. If it's snowy and it's mildly scary, it goes on my winter horror list.
Oh, I love that movie. Like, I love it. It's fun.
It's so great.
But it's dumb as hell. But I'm a person that I can get a kick out of a film like that and just watch it and just laugh and have fun with the people that I'm watching it with. But
Exactly. That's what you got to have.
the other theory that I just remembered too that I brought up at the very beginning was there's a theory that was brought up in the Room 237 documentary, which is that Stanley Kubrick is quote unquote killing Stephen King is because
Oh yeah, you said that.
So when Scatman Crothers as Halloran is driving up to the hotel through the snow, there's a automobile accident, and one of them is a red convertible that's part of an accident. And the theory goes that basically at the time of this film being made, Stephen King had a convertible that looked very similar. So it's like Stanley Kubrick. Yeah, I mean, dude, oh yeah, I mean, these guys are hardcore looking for stuff here. Yeah, there's theories that it's about Stanley Kubrick was the person who faked the moon landing and that this is his internal regret of doing it. Yeah, man,
Oh my God.
It goes on and on. There's the one thing I will say though, if you have the opportunity to watch the movie forwards and backwards at the exact same time, some interesting things happen. There are people that go way too deep into it.
Wait. Did you just say if I have the ability to watch the movie forwards and backwards at the same time?
Yeah, you can find it on YouTube and you can find it online if you search for it. Yeah. It's you overlay the film on top of itself. I'm not going to say it's the greatest thing on the face of the planet, and I'm not even going to say it's something anyone should have to do. But if stuff like that interests you, it is interesting. I know, laugh away, but see, for me, this is like a Tuesday for me. Yeah. It's like a Tuesday. Well, and that's where that kind of then ties in, is why is Red Rum spelled backwards? And some people are because Stanley Kubrick wants you to play the movie backwards. See? So,
oh my God, no, I can't.
All right, everybody, this has been the show. I'm going to cut it off here before I hear a gunshot and Isabel's just silent on her end. And
I can't.
And I have to explain this at her wake, what happened. Well, as my friend Janine would say, white man's burden, Lloyd. White man's burden. Isabelle, thank you for being here. Thanks for coming back to the studio. I appreciate it. Everybody check out Night Faces if you want some really good music and some really good storytelling in a podcast. I highly recommend it. And thank you again, Isabelle, for being here.
Of course. It was super fun.
Bye. I don't know how else to end it. Hey gang, Kelvin here. A couple of quick little updates. First of all, we're going to be taking a break from the show for the next 2 weeks. So the next episode should be coming out Wednesday, December 1st. I'm excited to continue with the show. I just need a little bit of a break. Some work and stuff is getting a little crazy busy at the moment. So I just want to let everybody know, again, expect the next episode to come out December 1st. Also, again, too, if you would like to follow us on Instagram, you can do so at the U Show Show. Also, just as a reminder, we've also created a Discord server. If anybody's into that, come on and chat and hang out. We've got a couple people in it right now. It seems pretty fun. I will also be running my Shitty Film Club through Discord. Shitty Film Club is basically where a bunch of friends and myself, we all get together and we vote on which shitty film we want to watch. We have one planned for the 17th of November. I believe it's going to be the Dungeons and Dragons movie from 2000. But yeah, we all just show up and we chat and we laugh and we have a good time as we watch shitty movies. And again, if you join the Discord server, you can vote on which movie we'll watch next. There's a Google Doc that has a huge long list of movies to pick from. I would love anybody to join, and feel free to add and contribute to the Shitty Film Club. It is a really fun time. So, but also, I just want to take another moment to say thank you. Thank you for listening to the show. Thanks for being here. And it means a lot to me, and I appreciate it, and I know so do my guests. And I hope everybody has a good Thanksgiving, and we will see everybody again December 1st. Thanks. Bye.